G'day guys, welcome back to the Boundary Riders YouTube channel, and today I thought it would be a fun little idea to take a look at some uncontracted players and some players that could be potentially on the move towards the end of 2025. As we know, player movement now is the talk of the town throughout pretty much the whole 12 months of the year, and we've already seen a couple of trade rumours dropping for next year as well. So let's take a look at some of the biggest stories that could potentially happen next year. So first of all, probably the biggest one that's been talked about going into next year is Chad Warner. Of course, plays for the Sydney Swans right now, is a WA boy. There is some news circulating that he actually met with a couple of West Coast Eagles representatives. One of them was Don Pike, the other one was Kieran Jack, who, yes, were a part of the Sydney Swans, but such a big news story coming up. Sydney are obviously hopeful of him staying. Dean Cox said that's one of the big signings that they want to make towards the end of next year. For me personally, I think he will probably stay. Even though I'm a Swans fan, I know that maybe it sounds a little bit biased. I think he'll probably stay but sign a very short-term contract because he's not a free agent yet. I wouldn't be surprised if he signs a contract, gets to free agency, and then we'll potentially look at it again. Next up is Tom de Koning. Now, this is a bit of a surprising one. A couple of years ago, there was talk that maybe he would be going to Sydney. A lot of big money moves going that way, but eventually Sydney kind of fell off the ranks of that. He decided to stay at Carlton, and then Sydney obviously inevitably picked up Brodie Grundy. Tom de Koning does come out of contract next year. Geelong, Sydney, and St Kilda have always been keen on him. I don't know about St Kilda, but I think Geelong would be the big one if Carlton aren't able to sign him, because obviously his brother is linked there as well. Tom de Koning did really show some good signs towards the middle part to end part of last year before he had his injury. This one's, I think, going to be a story that's going to go throughout the year, and the longer it goes on, there's probably going to be a lot more talking points about Tom de Koning. Personally, if I had to pick a team that he would go to, it probably would be the Cats, just because they somehow get everyone. I'd like to see Bailey Smith's contract, see what he's got in there to like get some like little extra money deals from Cotton On or whatever. But yeah, I think Tom de Koning, that's going to be a story that I think is going to be going out through a lot of next year. After that, we've got the Melbourne trio. It is Christian Petrarca, Clayton Oliver, and Kozzie Pickett. All three of these players were linked to other clubs in 2024 towards Kozzie Pickett kind of wanted to go back to WA. Port Adelaide were in the mix as well. I would see if he is going to go somewhere, it would be WA, his home state. I personally think that this is going to be an interesting talking point, especially Oliver and Petrarca. Kozzie Pickett's a little bit younger, so I would see that they'd probably try to hold on to him a little bit more. Petrarca and Oliver, they've still got a lot more of their contracts. I personally don't see any of them leaving because their contracts are long-term, and I think Melbourne have to hold them to it. I know it may sound a bit harsh, but I think AFL clubs have to be stronger on this now. Melbourne did stay strong with Petrarca in the off-season and Oliver to an extent. So I don't actually see any of these three leaving next year. But of course, this is very early on. We'll have to see what plays out in that one. Probably one of the biggest ones that's came out in the last couple of weeks, though, is Matt Rowell. So Matt Rowell has been looked at by a couple of Victorian clubs, obviously the big ones, you think of Collingwood and Essendon. Matt Rowell has signed up for another couple of seasons already through to free agency, so he hasn't exactly been looking to go anywhere. But Collingwood is kind of in the mix for him. Collingwood obviously love to have a Matt Rowell type. I really don't see him leaving the Gold Coast. I personally see him as the next captain, so I don't think he's going anywhere. I think the Gold Coast are going to do everything they can to sign him long term. On the other side of it though, on Essendon, they do have 2 first-round draft picks and 2 second-round draft picks into 2025. So if they do want to try and stockpile all those picks and maybe go get Matt Rowell, try and yank him out of the Gold Coast, that's a potential move as well. I personally can't see Matt Rowell leaving next year. A couple of the big free agents coming up. Obviously, the biggest one is Luke Davies-Uniacke. There was talk about him potentially leaving at the end of 2024, but he did stay to his contract. He says he wants to stay at North Melbourne. He wants to be a North Melbourne player. But St Kilda are still chasing hard. Of course, they still have their war chest. They have a massive amount of money. They did send a little bit of that towards Jack Macrae to get him out of the Bulldogs, but I think LDU is the big talking point. He may potentially be a 1.5, even talks about the first $2 million player, LDU, to go to St Kilda. I think this is a big one. This is probably the biggest one I think is going to happen next year of like the big players. St Kilda are just going to have to throw all kinds of money at people to get them out. Now because he's at North Melbourne, I think it's going to be a little bit easier than if he was at a Collingwood when they try to go for Tagawi, or even Josh Kelly when they try to get him out of the Giants. And North Melbourne are still extremely confident that they can keep him long term. So I think this is going to be a big one going into next year. If I had to call it right now, with the big money that St Kilda have, I'd probably say St Kilda are favourites. but St Kilda have been favourites for big money players before, and it's fallen through, so they have to do everything right on that front. Sam Draper's another one. There's already been talking points that he was even going to go to the Crows this year. That kind of fell through. He's still getting attraction from Adelaide. He is very settled in Melbourne, though, so that's one talking point as well. But Adelaide would like to find a replacement for Riley O'Brien, so Sam Draper's definitely one in the mix. Another one as well is Oscar Allen. So he's obviously had some injury issues towards last year, and he is going to be a free agent going into next season, but I think Oscar Allen, he's the captain. I can't see him going anywhere. Same thing with Marcus Bontempelli. This is going to be an interesting one because obviously he won a premiership very early on in his career. He's been the captain, arguably the best Bulldogs player. If he was to leave, that would gut the club. I think if that was the case, Luke Beveridge probably loses his job, and his job gets like thrown around every couple of weeks as he's going to lose his job. But if Marcus Bontempelli was to leave the Bulldogs, that would gut the football club. I can't see the Bulldogs, losing Bontempelli. I feel like Bontempelli would look so weird in a different jumper too. Braden Maynard's an interesting one as well. In the last week or so, people have been talking about a couple of Collingwood players that did sign to the club. Dan Houston and Harry Perryman, of course. They're saying that Braden Maynard, because he's getting paid a lot less, he could potentially be pushed out of the defence. I personally can't see it. I think that Braden Maynard lives and breathes black and white. So I can't really see that one going through. That's really all the free agents we're talking about now. Another one here, which I don't see happening, is Harley Reed. The contract of Harley Reed in 2025 looks like there's going to be a lot of noise about it. There's already talking points that potentially he could be a $2 million a year player. Obviously, we saw the potential of Harley Reed in his first year. He was absolutely massive. They're saying that they could be signed on the Buddy Franklin deal, the Godfather deal of 10 years. And he could obviously get, at this point, with all the player payments that have been going up, he could be $2 million a year, $20 million. He could be the first $20 million player in the AFL. But I don't see him leaving the West Coast Eagles anytime soon. I feel like he'll get through to his first contract at the very least, then re-sign, and then I think free agency is probably the first time we'll be seriously looking at Harley Reed potentially leaving. But he looks like he's pretty settled in the WA. So, I mean, I'm not going to be someone sitting here every 3 weeks saying that he's going to be going or that sort of stuff. But I think Harley Reed's pretty settled in WA for now. Finn Callahan, another one here for the Giants, comes out of contract at the end of 2025. GWS are keen to lock him in. He is a very big talking point. St Kilda is another team that could be looking at Finn Callahan as well. Obviously, they're going to be going hard for Luke Davies-Uniacke, but Finn Callahan's another option. They've got so much money, St Kilda, they may even be able to try and get both of them. Finn Callahan really came onto the scene this year as well. Towards last year, even the year before, he had a little bit of signs, but this year he definitely showed that sort of smooth-moving midfielder that St Kilda would love to have. Definitely a lot more polished, and I think this will probably be a story that's kind of on the burner for a bit of the season, and then if he's not signed by midway through the year, then there may be more talking points going forward. But that's really all the talking points that I wanted to get away in this video, guys, from the trade and free agency front. Obviously, we're a long, long way away from that, but hey, if Tom Morris and all the journos can start tweeting out random trade rumors for 2025, then hey, I think I can make a video about it. So guys, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave it a like and subscribe to the channel. Of course, we have some great plans for next year, for the next AFL season. And if you actually want to become a channel member right now, I'm actually going to be banking up a bunch of video essays for next year. But they are up for channel members right now. So if you want to join that, the link is down below. Just a couple of dollars a month. Great to support the channel as well. But thank you for listening, guys. Thank you for watching. And we'll catch you all in the next one.